All right, so let's get started in some Q&A of Write a Book in a Weekend. Before we do, though, I want to talk to Vicki Dobbs a little bit. Vicki has a book launch coming up this week. And Vicki, my first question for you, well, first of all, tell us about your book and the title and all that good stuff.
Well, the book, Get Off the Shelf, which is hard to see in these blurred things. I'll pretend it's my face.
Yeah, we got it.
Is it's a lot of my stories, how I came to find who I want to be and how I want to be in the world. So the title Get Off the Shelf is how we set ourselves aside, especially as women, in service to everything and everybody else in our lives except ourselves. We put ourselves on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it's filled with my own stories that will connect if familiar to you, and also some tips and tricks and ceremony, sacred art to help you get off the shelf.
All right. So what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit and have you put yourself back to where you were during one of these weekends, like the people who are watching this. And maybe they're working on their first book or their next book. What is something that you would tell yourself if that's where you were in working on this book? Like, what would you tell yourself to help kind of keep you going to get it finished?
Oh, if I remember back to my very first one, and you said, take something or start with something you already have. It was like I have these folders full of papers of things that I've been keeping just in case. And I think that starting with something that you already have was the breakthrough moment for me, because to sit down with a blank page and just say, okay, I'm going to write in a book in a week, and I'm going to introduce this. What's my idea? And can be a little overwhelming. So that piece, start with something you already have, gave me the trigger to pull. Mm-hmm. Because if you give me a paragraph or a page or a concept, even if it's in somebody else's words, it will trigger what I can write in my voice. So that's where I started. I pulled something I had written and I began to write it as its own standalone piece instead of part of something else.
Right. You know, in addition to that, even if it's something you haven't written, maybe something that you say over and over again, or that you tell people, or a story that you tell, that definitely could be something. It's like, hey, I can put this out in the world and in a book. So very good. Right. And last question for you. What are the basics of book promotion that you feel like the foundational pieces? So again, for people who are going to be looking to do this in the next few months or so, what is it that they have to know about promoting their book?
Oh, strap in, sit down, buckle up. It's a ride. I'm not sure if it makes E-ticket, but D for sure, for those of us who remember when we had books of tickets at Disneyland. Get some help. That's first and foremost my recommendation to anybody. Trying to do this on your own is overwhelming. And for me, it was a bigger mountain than I wanted to climb. So get some help. Go to somebody, hire somebody, find somebody that's been there before you. It's like finding a teacher, you know, follow them. They've already done all the hard stuff. So get some help.
Yeah, getting some support. And I can see in a couple of areas, not only a checklist of like, here's what you should do to launch your book, which, you know, I give out every once in a while, or we talk about during our publishing and promotion mastermind, but also perhaps help with images if that's not your thing, about making images, and some help maybe in setting up, like, you know, websites and things like that, if that's not your thing either. So, but it's always good to have support, because the more you have, frankly, the more energy you bring to the project and the more sales that you'll probably get.
I think so. And even as simple as how to write the emails asking for help. How do you ask your friends versus your family versus somebody that you know, and they might recognize your name, but not per se know you. Something as simple as that. I mean, going back to the blank page, okay, I'm going to write this person and say I need help, but what do I say? So your templates give me that kickstart. I can add my own language to it, but it gives me a place to start. So you were truly a gift finding you, and I wish I could remember how I stumbled upon that, but I did, and it was meant to be. And here I am with the second book about to hit the universe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no worries. And yes, you know, it's so funny because I just ran across those templates last night in how to ask for a testimonial for your book. So for those who are taking part in this weekend, I will share that with you so you can kind of start ramping up and asking for help yourself. Vicki, thank you for doing this little spontaneous interview with me. I appreciate you. I wish you the best of luck with your book launch. Flash that cover one more time, if you would, so we can all
you can see it. Tuesday, the 21st, on the solstice. Get off. You really can't see the darn thing, but
there you go. There you go. All right, great. Get off the shelf.
Get off the shelf.
From Vicki Dobbs. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Donna.
All right, excellent. Okay, let's move into some questions next. Who has a question for me? And raise your hand, and I will chat with you. Diane Lovett.
I've been working on my outline. First, I was too many little things in the very first item or whatever. So now I've changed it to about 7 different topics. But I don't know if you want us to send that to you, do it in a email like we did the introduction, or
I'm not doing other reviews. It was the introduction, that review that comes with this weekend. But you can read your outline to me. I'm happy to hear it.
It's pretty long.
But just read. Can you just give me the chapter titles?
Okay. So my book is a memoir, kind of about control and women's bodies being objectified and things. So it's first boyfriend ownership, and the second one is family dominance, family and parents dominance, and the third is teachers, anger and abuse. And then women's bodies, objectified beauty contests, and then college sorority lineups for the boys. Mm-hmm. And then how I met my husband and how he was different from the other boyfriends. And then how we raised our family for girls to be doing the same thing as the guys, and my social justice work, ERA, protection, immigrants, and how it changed my life.
Okay, very good. For those first few chapters, what are the tips or the benefit? Like, how are you going to uplift the reader when you're talking about boyfriend, and family and all that?
Just by showing them some of the things that creep in as control, but how to then find your own voice to say, that's not right.
Within those situations.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it's really important that you put the spotlight on that. Yeah, I know you have to bring awareness to the situation, but really it's okay, it doesn't take too many sentences or paragraphs to understand the situation. The question is, well, how can you think about this? How can you feel about this? What can you do about this for yourself? Mm-hmm. And so make sure that you get right to that. Sounds good. And then we talked about your introduction a little bit yesterday in the video review. You might want to also consider adding a chapter 1 that could paint just an idea that almost talks about that, it talks about it in a more positive, uplifting way right from the get-go. Again, kind of paints that dream at the end. It's like, if you've been finding this happening for yourself, dear girl, well, let me tell you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And even summarizing meeting your husband and your social justice work and all of that right at the beginning can be inspirational to help the reader get through. Here's
Okay.
the thing, everybody, like we think of our stories and what we're sharing here in chronological order. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. But sometimes to keep the reader engaged, we have to do it a little bit differently and give them a little bit of payoff, give them that good feeling in the beginning. And it's like, okay, now that we're centered here, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some other things that led me to this understanding, and then personally how I was able then to get here too. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. You're welcome. Okay. Good job. Benita Joy.
Okay. A question that comes up for me is how directive to be, because my style is to kind of water down rather than just say, do this. And so I'm
I don't think that's your style at all. I don't agree with that premise. I'll just tell you right off the bat. You seem very direct to me. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. But well, what I mean is, well, can I read the paragraph here? Okay.
Oh, Benita Joy, you're breaking up. Could you shut off your video? That might help your audio.
Okay. Know that some lines will land for some audiences and not others. You won't want to tell. Now, like right there, you won't want, or do I, or don't tell. Anyway, you won't
read the whole thing. Yeah, read the whole thing and let me see.
Okay. Know that some lines will land for some audiences not others. You won't want to tell jokes that insult doctors if you are speaking to a group of doctors, unless you are one. When you are one of them, you will likely have more leeway. Even then, it is better to make the punchline about yourself instead of audience members. Remember the 2022 Oscars when comedian Chris Rock told a joke about the wife of Will Smith, both of whom were in the audience. Much of the media focused on Will Smith's reaction, but there is also something to be said about the fallout of risk of making fun of an audience member.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm thinking about your example, but I think it's good the way you have it. So here's a subtle way that I hear what you're saying about the you don't want to or you won't want to line. Here's a subtle way to do that. Say, I don't recommend, for instance, da. So that puts a more positive spin on it, even it has the word don't instead of like you won't, instead of being like telling the reader what not to do. It's just like, I don't recommend. So you take on the negative part. And also that makes you a leader to the reader. When you use phrases like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Although I was thinking that it was not to make a lot of I statements and make things about you or me.
Don't overthink it. Just take my advice and run with it. Okay. All right. Very good. Mega.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question that I have is, after your feedback yesterday was hugely helpful, and exactly what you had said about once you start putting the content in, like it completely changed the introduction piece for me. And so now I've gotten the 7 points, and I'm going back to the self-help version because by the time I shook out your feedback from the review. Now the question that I have is I have like the pain points, and then I also have the relationship. So it's ultimately about the relationship with God and how it breaks down in their life, which is ultimately to have abundance in their life. That was the positive outcome shift. And so now the question that I have is whether I break the self-help book down into these outlines of the 7 relationships: God, self, family, money, romantic, community, and then nature, or if I go for the root issues like unworthiness, guilt, free will, purpose, forgiveness, like which angle do I go at to most effectively deliver that?
Well, it's interesting, and I don't know if other people here had the same reaction, but when you read your first list of relationships, abundance, and all that, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. And then it's like, or do I go for the other 4 things that you said, guilt or what have you? That's not as enticing, of the subject. So here's what you do. It's a little bit like, attracting bees to honey or what have you. You introduce in your title, and like the introduction, things like that, is about those things that your reader is interested in. All right. Then once you get into it, it's like, well, here's what's really going on. And then it's those 4 things. So because that first list that you had, nature and all that, that's like, oh yeah, I would like to read about that and my God relationship with that. And then, but then it's like, okay, now we're going to dig a little deeper, so you kind of cover it, and it's like, now we're going to dig a little deeper into really what's going on here. And that's the way you do it. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question or something that you want to read? No, good. All right, excellent. Let's do another 20 minutes of writing, and then I'll check in with you again. 20 minutes starting now.